This one is for the history books. When Matt Walsh sat down with Tucker Carlson for an interview, the conversation covered a lot of ground, but their take on the Douglas Murray versus Dave Smith debate stole the show. Just watch this clip before I tell you why it matters more than you think.
We think free speech is like a foundational concept, the foundational concept in the United States. And if you have an opinion, you ought to be able to express it. And I thought this was what everybody agreed on. I thought this is why they voted for Trump. Shows you how dumb I am. And then I wake up and I see these people, many of whom I know, scolding Rogan, me, just scolding in general. You're not supposed to platform that person or that set of ideas, or that those are words that shouldn't be spoken. Yeah. Literally, people on the so-called right are mad about asking questions. It's like a parody or something. I thought that's like we made fun of the left. Like they'd be like, oh, just asking questions. Your questions are more than questions. They're assaults on me. And I'm literally hearing people on the right say that.
This one is a much needed conversation on the right, especially now. There's a growing group. You can call them the woke right, the far right, the dark woke, whatever you want. But their mission seems clear. Shut down speech they don't like. And here's the problem. They're doing the very thing we've spent years fighting against. You see, one of the core principles of conservatism is a commitment to the First Amendment. That's been a defining line between the right and the left. But now some on our side want to swing the pendulum the other way. They think it's our turn to silence voices we disagree with. That's literally becoming the very thing we opposed. Replacing left-wing censorship with right-wing censorship is hypocrisy at the finest. And if we go down that path, it'll be the ultimate failure of the century.
If you use the word platforming as a negative, I don't take you seriously. I've already lost respect for you.
I agree.
That to me, that's a leftist thing. That to me, that's the blue. When I think of the blue hair woman with the nose piercing, I think of her as someone who scolds you for, why did you platform that person? We think about wokeness. That's one of the quintessential features of wokeness, whatever that is exactly, is this idea you want to platform people. I just don't agree with it. I mean, what does that even mean? And also, usually when someone is accused of platforming someone else, it's like it doesn't even make sense to begin with, because the person that they're saying is being platformed already had a platform. Like, we all have platforms. We're out there saying what we think already. So usually when they say platforming, what they really mean is you talked to that person. It's not that we don't want you to platform that person. They already had a platform. We don't want you to speak to that person and have any kind of conversation with them.
Yeah, exactly. This is the same tactic the left used for years to silence its opponents, and look where it got them. Censorship, cancel culture, and blacklist became the default tools, and it backfired. What people seem to be forgetting is the basic concept of anti-speech. If you don't like someone's arguments, the answer is not to try to silence them or demand that certain shows never invite them on. If you truly believe your ideas are better, prove it. Make your case, convince others through reason and evidence, not by claiming some moral high ground against the opposition. Resorting to character assassination and outrage mobs doesn't make you look confident. It makes you look insecure. I think Tucker led this conversation with a question about free speech to get a sense of where Matt stands on the issue. And then he followed it with a question about the Douglas Murray and Dave Smith debate, which ties directly into this topic. So let's listen and see what Matt had to say about it.
A lot of this kind of broke through the surface in the debate between Dave Smith and Douglas Murray on Rogan a couple of weeks ago. Did you watch that? And
I did. I watched. I ended up watching. I wasn't planning on watching the whole thing, but I watched the whole thing. I thought that Douglas Murray, who seems like a really smart guy, I thought he made a crucial mistake in the debate by starting. It seemed like the first 45 minutes to an hour was this kind of this litigation over who's an expert and who isn't. And that's just not, you're not going to win the argument that way. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody should want to hear it. Credentialism, you're not an expert. You know, we've seen what the expert class has given us, especially over the last 5 years.
Pretty good job or no?
I would give it a solid D-. It's very generous, very generous.
To be fair, Matt did mention in another part of the interview that he wasn't picking a side, but he's absolutely right about Murray's expert argument. In fact, most of the voices we hear in the online space aren't actual experts. They're commentators, thinkers, and content creators sharing their 2 cents on a given topic. Sometimes they're on point, sometimes not, but they often bring valuable insights that challenge the way people think. And that's not a bad thing. Conversations just need a mix of voices. You don't always need to be an academic or a policy advisor to contribute meaningfully. I've noticed, by the way, you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Now, Matt went on to explain how Murray's argument ties back to free speech and made some valid points.
I believe in free speech in principle, so people should, and to me, free speech it's not a complicated idea. Free speech means that you have the freedom to express whatever opinion or perspective you want.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree or disagree, doesn't matter. But if it's an opinion, if you're just sending a message about what you believe, you should be able to do that, period. This guy that you're sitting next to, whether he's an expert or not, makes no difference. I don't care if he's a scholar. I don't care if he's a homeless guy you just pulled off the street. His arguments are valid or they aren't.
Exactly.
And that's all that matters. That's all that anyone cares about.
That's really what it all boils down to. The debate on Joe Rogan centered around the Middle East conflict, but like most issues of that scale, it's not black and white, no matter how confidently it was presented. Even Douglas, for all his strong points, didn't fully meet the standard he was setting for others in this conversation. Truth is, you can't have a real understanding of a conflict like that by only reacting to what's happening in the moment. There are decades of history, politics, and context behind every headline. Without acknowledging that, the discussion just ends up sounding more like a hot take than a thoughtful breakdown. That doesn't mean the conversation isn't valuable, but it does show how easy it is to oversimplify complex issues. Obviously, Matt isn't one to post wine without providing an alternative, and he went on to explain why both sides were in the wrong here.
I don't understand how do we get to a point where the dominant conversation in this country is about what's happening in other countries? I don't understand it. I don't understand the people that are obsessively focused on it on either side of it, really.
I agree.
Like, let's talk about the war on the family, on marriage, things that affect our kids. You know, how do we raise healthy, happy kids? Let's talk about that. Any of these issues. There's like serious, deep cultural issues in our country.
Yes.
Is what we should be talking about, in my mind.
I can see Matt's argument. I don't necessarily agree, but here's what I think. It's not like we don't have enough problems right here at home. In fact, we've got plenty, and it's easy to get caught up in international debates and oversee conflict, but we can't lose sight of what's happening in our own backyard. And focusing on American issues first doesn't make you an isolationist or selfish. It kind of makes you responsible, in my opinion, but I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to get their coverage from an independent source just like us, please share the video with them. It means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.